The National Palace. The National Palace currently has the use of a museum, but some time ago it was used by the three branches of the government. It was built, the first National Palace, between 1866 and 1870, but a fire destroyed the National Palace in 1889, and it was rebuilt in 1905 and 1911. The National Palace has 105 rooms. 101 are secondary and 4 are primary. The 4 primary has the name of the colors. The colors of the primary rooms of the National Palace are red, blue, yellow, and pink. The red room was for the president to give like speeches to the crowd. They had a balcony for that. The yellow one is where the president had formal meetings. The blue one was where the Legislative Assembly was located. And the pink one was for the Supreme Court of Justice. Okay, the first National Palace was destroyed because of a fire in 19th of November of 1889. We don't know exactly the cause of how the fire started, but we know that it started in the second floor and that it was on midnight. Then we have the rebuild that after the destruction of the first one, the government added like a tax, but not exactly a tax, but for every fifth of coffee that they exported, they will add one Salvadorian colon to the rebuild of the National Palace. Then we have the use that the National Palace was used of the 3 branches of the government, that was legislative, executive, and judicial. Okay, so we have the events that affected the development of the downtown. Okay, first we have the reconstruction of the National Palace. These events had a good impact, but also had a bad impact. For good impact, we have that it attracted more tourists, so it affected go to local restaurants and local places like that make more money. Then we have that restoration of some parts around, because with the restoration of the National Palace that was burned and then restored, it like affected in a good way, because it like modernized the historic center, and also some parts that were probably damaged. But also we have a bad impact. We had like it cost a lot of money and to restore it and to keep like that restoration. Then we have the earthquakes. The earthquakes had a lot of impact in this historic center. For example, the 1917 that caused a lot of damage in the historic center, and the 1986 that also caused a lot of damage, and it caused to lose some like historic buildings. Then we have the Monsignor Romero, that first it caused insecurity in people, because that a person like that was shot in a mass was very bad, and also it caused fear in people. Some to don't go to the historic center more, but also when he was buried, they heard gunshots, so it caused a massive stampede, and caused a lot of people to get injured and some people to die. Then we have the Civil War. The Civil War was very bad to this, because the Civil War caused some people to a forced migration, and that caused the abandon of the historic center, and also damage to the properties, because the Civil War was not peaceful, and some people was seriously bad, like affected. Then we had the Declaration of National Buildings. These have good and bad, positive and negative effect, because it comes like more security because buildings like that need extra security, but it also caused restriction that was very high with very high costs, and that was bad, and the protection for the people was good. Then we have the location of the three branches of the government that were in the National Palace. This was mostly good because it affected in a good way to local local stores and restaurants. It also added value to the historic center because it was like, oh, the government is there, so it attracted tourists, and that also affected to the stores in a very good way. And it also gave a lot of protection in the historic center because if the government is there, it cannot be very insecure. It needed a lot of vigilance and a lot of protection. Okay, he basically says that in the remodelation they gave more opportunity. Bueno, vamos a ir con la primera entrevista. Aquí tenemos las preguntas. Okay, la primera pregunta es: ¿ha cambiado la experiencia después de la remodelación del centro histórico?
Bastante y notablemente.
Okay.
Ha sido un gran impacto, la verdad. Un gran impacto que desde años atrás pues hemos venido viviendo muchas tragedias, quizás por la misma situación en la cual nos encontrábamos, ¿verdad? En cuanto a lo que es la situación de zozobra, lo que es la plantación de las maras, ¿verdad? Todo esto había retenido muchos proyectos en los cuales ahora el gobierno ha ejecutado y con gran facilidad, ¿verdad? Gracias a las otras instituciones, ¿verdad? Eso es. La primera pregunta.
Sí, la segunda pregunta. ¿Usted qué opina de la remodelación del centro histórico?
La remodelación ha venido a hacer un buen impacto en cuanto al comercio, porque esto viene a generar más ingresos a lo que son los otros comercios. Además de eso, pues le da más posibilidad a abrir más fuentes de empleo para los jóvenes, ¿verdad?, que ahora en día necesitan.
Okay, y tercera y última pregunta: ¿esta remodelación va a tener un cambio significativo en el país?
Oh, claro que sí lo va a tener. Desde ya, pues, podemos observar que hay muchos turistas que vienen acá al país. Solamente vienen con el simple hecho de algunos de invertir, otros por ver el cambio que ha tenido el país, ¿verdad?, en cuanto a sus remodelaciones de edificios, sus estrategias, ¿verdad? Son muy competitivos, la verdad. Y yo creo de que ahora en el país, pues, se puede decir de que estamos viviendo una fuente de paz, tranquilidad, y los jóvenes también, pues, salen con más libertad, ¿verdad?, con sus padres, ¿verdad? No hay aquella zozobra de que si van a salir o no van a regresar, ¿verdad? Así es de que incluso pues las delegaciones policiales pues andan ahí de un lado a otro. Tú te puedes ver ahí pues de que a cada esquina que tú das vuelta pues ahí está uno, pues, ¿verdad? Y eso es bueno pues para el país porque crea más confianza en la población.
Ok, muchas gracias.
Vaya, papá.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Okay, so he basically said that the remodelation of the historic center changed a lot of lives, and not only for the government, because it increased tourism. So it helped to local stores and restaurants to get to a better chance of life. It also created a more secure place because the remodelation and also the control of the maras led people to go to visit that places, because before the fear to the maras didn't let people to go, because a very good example is when Monsignor Romero was shot and he died, so people had fear. But now with the remodelation and the good job of Nayib Bukele, led people to go to that kind of places. Right here we have a video of the Red Room where we clearly can see the balcony where the president gives his speeches Also, we can see some presidents and some important people to right on the top of the on some doors. Here we have another video, but this one is from the pink room that I explained before, and also from the blue and yellow room. And here are only some photos about the National Palace, where in some one we could see only like the trees it had, how it is from inside, and also his like outdoor space. And we all in the hole that we can see, it is the real like floor before the remodelation.
Gerardo Barrios. Gerardo Barrios was a political, military, and statistic from El Salvador. Basically, Gerardo Barrios is known for being friend from Francisco Morazan and elected by the President Church in 1858 to 1863. In his president time, Church, it basically promote the cultivate of coffee in El Salvador and promote and do and inculcate the modernization of the army in El Salvador. Furthermore, he died because the descendants of the presidents shut down him in 1865. Gerardo Barrios was born in September 24 of 1813 in San Juan Lempa, El Salvador. At 15 years old, he joined the army of El Salvador in the presidential period of Francisco Morazan and was impulsed by Francisco Morazan to the presidential charge. Gerardo Barrios Monument. Gerardo Barrios Monument is located in El Salvador, San Salvador, in the downtown. Based, it's about representation of Gerardo Barrios, who is previously mentioned and say the biography of him, and it's based on the pride of El Salvador, the development of El Salvador, and other types of topics that represent Gerardo Barrios Monument. Gerardo Barrios Monument is made by some materials like copper and metal and stone. Then Gerardo Barrios Monument, it's in the middle of the downtown because it's one of the most representative statues that have El Salvador. The Cathedral of El Salvador. The Cathedral, the Metropolitan Cathedral of El Salvador, is a two-tailed transformation. The first one is that it was marked by a disaster and then constructed entire again. And the other tale is that the earthquake basically destroyed a lot of the parts of the cathedral, but was reconstructed. The cathedral, history of El Salvador that shares the resilience and controversy of the country of El Salvador, have passed over two earthquakes. The first one was in 1873 and the second one was in 1956. This is because the seismic regions was too strong in that time and destroyed a lot the cathedral. Then it was a lot of scents